Hello, and welcome to PhDemystified, the podcast for current and aspiring doctoral students. We're here to help make your doctoral journey more enjoyable.
We're along for the ride. So our goal is to illuminate the dark corners of the Academy, discuss some of the unwritten rules, break through some of the confusion, and offer some guidance based on our own experiences. I'm Dr. Julianne Burgess, Adjunct Professor at Brock University.
And I am William Ankoma, Assistant Professor of Education at St. Francis Xavier University. We are diverse folks with diverse perspectives, and we are also recent grads. This is episode 8, and we thank you for sticking with us. Today, we are tackling one of the critical but less discussed topics of doctoral studies, selecting your supervisory committee. Your supervisory committee is a team that will guide, they will challenge and support you through some of the most significant years of your studies. So whether you are just starting out or already pursuing your PhD, this episode is packed with, insights to help you make informed and hopefully good choices.
So, getting a supervisor, well, this is the head of your committee, and this varies according to each program. So it's important to understand that the process of selecting a supervisor committee also varies depending on the doctoral program and the institution. So William, you had some interesting experiences with this. So what did you experience?
Yeah, so, to get the supervisor itself, I had to reach out to the programs that I was applying to see whether I needed to have a supervisor or I didn't have to. I reached out to, the university I attended, Brock University, and yes, I needed to have a supervisor.
So you need to name the supervisor
on your letter of intent.
Right, your application to the program requires you to have a supervisor in place before you begin.
Yes, because when the evaluation committee, the selection committee, when they sit down and they see that name, they make the call or they send an email. Hey, we have this potential student or aspiring student who says you're ready to work with them. Are you ready? Once that person says yes, you're in the program. Now, so Brock has that. York University also has that. And then Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, OISE, with University of Toronto, they also have this practice. But University of Ottawa, when I reached out, they didn't have that practice for the program I wanted.
So what do? You don't name a supervisor?
You don't. So with them, you just put in the application, and once you are in the program, of course, you're going to make friends. You're going to find somebody whose research interest, aligns with yours, and then you go from there. Could be your course instructor, could be someone you're sitting on committee with. I think the program knows what they are doing. So it's really great to know this before you even get into the program. And we've covered some of this in previous episodes.
So what would you recommend a prospective student do before they fill out their paperwork? What should you do?
Reach out to the program's director and find out. So you don't waste precious time reaching out to supervisors and then later you realize that, no, you don't need to name anybody. If you need to name anybody, you got that sorted out anyway.
So you have your supervisor. Now, the next step is to establish your dissertation committee. Now, usually this happens at the end of your first year, but consult your own program handbook and see what the process is there. You may be faced with the question of whether it's your job to lead the process of selecting the committee members or whether that's your supervisor's job. So we have some thoughts on this. William, what do you think? Student-led versus supervisor-led committee formation.
Right. So, both approaches have their advantages and disadvantages. But you need to be very careful here. If you, the student, you've made friends, you have published with some of them, you had fantastic course instructors, and so you want to lead in putting your committee together. It's great. You share common interests, but you need to ask yourself some questions, right? Will the members that you are putting together, will they flow well with your supervisor? So if your program has a student-led approach, our suggestion is that you have to still do it with your supervisor because you don't want to put square pegs in round holes. Yeah,
It's true.
there are big egos in the academy, and you need to know that
And there are friendships within the academy.
as well.
And so people who work really well together and support each other. And you may not know that either, but your supervisor will know. And so the other possibility is supervisor led committee formation. So, what do you think of that?
Yeah. Again, if your supervisor is leading, it's great. But what's your role there? Is your supervisor going to put together those who are only interested in, getting the recognition and the credit for? Or do they really have your best interest at heart? Are you going to be working in a perfect stranger situation where that's my committee, but you don't really know them? It's your supervisor's, choice. So if your supervisor is leading, you want to still have an input in that.
Right. And so I think we both feel the same way that a balanced approach or collaborative approach is the best way to go. And that was, in fact, my experience with my supervisor. She named some names. One of the recommendations she had was perfect. It was a scholar I knew very well and had worked with in the past and thought that that was an excellent fit. The second person that she recommended was someone I didn't know but was in the same field. And so I trusted my supervisor on that one. As it turned out, she was great. The committee itself worked very well together, and the feedback that I got from her, from everyone, was very constructive and helpful.
Yeah, that is very true. I had a similar experience as well. I was consulted along the way, but I wasn't brave enough, so I made my supervisor lead the process. But we ended up having a committee that had the expertise I needed. So for me, that was fantastic because what I was researching on, that's what they were doing, the two of them. That's exactly what they were doing. So I actually got a chance to critique their work.
Right?
Yeah, the flaws I had seen in their work, I critiqued it and I praised their work too, where I thought they were doing well. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So really, if you are invited, and hopefully you will be, to have a say in the selection of your committee, consider scholars you know and like, faculty members whose work you respect, people you can learn from. You may share the same interest in theory or methodology or subject area. It's not a bad idea to even approach a professor whose coursework has challenged you. You know you're going to grow, you know they're going to ask you some tough questions, and that's going to make your work stronger. Now, the problem is that you might be very interested in going for a big name in the field, a star, and that might sound very impressive to have them on your committee, but you have to keep in mind if they're in big demand, if they're traveling and lecturing and they're off all the time, they may be too busy to give you the kind of attention you deserve.
That is very true. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a big name, a big professor, published so much, very well known? You mentioned their name. I was supervised by Henry Giroux. I was supervised by, and yeah, like wow, great. But the thing is, if they are too busy, then your work, your own progress may also suffer. Unless, they promise to really pull you along, which I am sure many big name, the stars, they pull their students along, and that's why they are big names too, right? But there is this example in Yan Gao's 2019 article titled Experiences of Chinese International Doctoral Students in Canada Who Withdrew, a narrative inquiry. It's published in the International Journal of Doctoral Studies. And one of the participants had to withdraw because he was working with a big name professor who was so busy and his work, didn't receive the attention it needed. He got frustrated and lost interest in the program and dropped out. So you really want to balance things well. It's okay to start with I wouldn't say a novice or a beginner prof, but anyone who has the time. Yeah, you really need that assurance that they have the time and they're ready and willing to see you through.
That's right. That's important. So once you know your committee members, William, you talked about this, read their work. If they're in your field, you need to know what their perspectives are and know their areas of expertise. Consider adding their work to your lit review. At least cite them in your dissertation. They should be relevant to your work. And while you're writing up your dissertation, it doesn't hurt to look and see what the latest things are that they've been working on, what they've published. They may be thinking in a new direction that could be quite helpful to you. At the very least, you will not regret being familiar with their work, their new work, when it comes time for you to defend your dissertation, because they're going to be thinking about the directions that they're now moving in. And something else to think about, the members of your dissertation committee may very well be your career mentors. They may become co-authors and research collaborators, and they may be very valuable to you in the future. So do not underestimate their importance to your development as a scholar. So, William, now that we've got your committee sorted out, what exactly can you expect from them? What's their purpose? What do they do for you?
Yes, so you have your committee together and now you're beginning your dissertation journey with your supervisor and 2 faculty members, but you need to check with in your program's handbook, do you need more members on your committee? I don't like more. I know 2 is good enough to work with the supervisor. But again, checking with your program, the handbook is clear on those. The committee's job is to really guide you through the dissertation process. They will comment on your proposal. They will give you feedback on your research and writing. They will recommend revisions, and they will tell you when your dissertation is finally ready to be defended.
Right. Now, in my experience, the first meeting I had with my committee was when I was defending my research proposal. And that was an informal meeting where they provided great feedback. They told me where I was too ambitious or where I was being too ambiguous. They gave me a list of authors to read. I felt really well prepared going forward with my research. Now, the second meeting I had with my committee was right after I completed my data collection. I told them how it went, challenges I encountered. I presented some of my findings and gave them some of my preliminary thoughts. Again, they provided feedback. And then they said, and we'll chat again after you send us your first draft. So that felt like a really long time, way off in the future. What I didn't do was reach out with questions for individual committee members, and I could have done that, but I was working very closely with my supervisor. So perhaps I missed an opportunity to really work more closely with the committee members to obtain their expertise. Was that something that you did when you were writing?
Yeah, so the thing is that every supervisor is different. Some supervisors would want to get the committee involved for you to interact with them right away. And some supervisors don't. They would rather have you work with them, supervisor and student, one-on-one, and then the committee only gets like almost the final product, and then they read and give the suggestions they have. With my experience, my first supervisor, I was working with her one-on-one, and she sent the work off to the committee. My second supervisor when I was puzzled somewhere, I would reach out to my supervisor that probably we should consult the committee. And she asked the committee. I didn't have to ask the committee members myself. The supervisor did that. So you really need to know the boundaries.
Right, right. And I understood right from the beginning that everything goes through your supervisor.
Yes.
So you shouldn't be reaching out to people here, there, and everywhere. Everything goes through your supervisor. And I would clarify that with your supervisor before you start reaching out to individual committee members.
Yeah, I want to add that I actually, when I was defending my dissertation proposal, I had 3 chapters. And it was there that one committee member said, no, you have to divide a particular chapter into 2 before you can defend this proposal. And the supervisor and the other committee member came on board, and I accepted it. So I ended up having 4 chapters. So that goes to tell you that you and your supervisor will do it, and then the committee comes in, and they will come with their own ideas too. Yeah.
Yes. I found the feedback I got from my committee members
Fantastic.
really valuable.
Fantastic.
And the small sidebar discussions always
Yeah.
really interesting. So hopefully you'll have the same experience.
Okay. So, our friends, another thing to keep in mind is when your dissertation's final draft is complete, that's you and your supervisor and the committee, you've really done it. You have that masterpiece. You're going to add 2 more members to your committee. You'll have an internal examiner, that's someone from within your institution, but not with your faculty, and an external examiner who will be someone from outside your institution. You have an arm's length, you don't have any relationship with them.
That's
other
right.
than maybe you read their work before, who is typically an established scholar who has a position of respect in your field. Now you want to take note. This is someone you want to impress with your work.
Right. And we're going to talk about defending the dissertation
Yes.
in a future episode. But once you've started the hard work of doing your research and writing, what should you expect from the dissertation committee as a whole?
Yeah. Again, your committee should function as your personal advisory panel. They are expected to provide you with perspectives and expertise that you or your supervisor may lack.
Yeah, and they should be examining your research methodology to verify that it all holds together and that your data supports your conclusions. They're going to look for gaps in your work and offer critique, not criticism, but they're going to be critiquing your work so that it can be the best it can be.
And they should help you stay on track. If you over delay in the work, they should, reach out to your supervisor and say, hey, I didn't sign up for this. Right?
Right. And they should serve, really, they're your advocates, your champions. If you run into any roadblocks, any problems, whether it be your advisor or any of the internal, external examiners, or some aspect of the process, they should be there for you, your champions. So you might think of it this way. You have this panel of experts all to yourself. Their job is not only to get you to the finish line, but also to help you make your dissertation the best it can be. And this really, as we've said before, it's the experience of a lifetime. And Dr. Courtney Watson also says, take advantage of your committee's time and talent and channel that energy and support into your development as a scholar. So she writes a short piece online called Dissertation Committee Roles, Functions, and How to Choose. You can consult that for more information.
Yes. So all too soon, we're coming to the end of this episode. And we just want to say that, wow, putting your committee together may be daunting, but it's a beautiful process.
And it's exciting.
It's exciting because you never know who you're going to get, right?
Right.
And every committee member will come with their own interests, their own perspectives, and how they want to help you. Some will give you a lot of work. Don't see it as too much. They're just helping you. The one who asked me to divide a chapter into 2 actually helped me in the end. It makes the process smoother and opened up what I wasn't seeing. So don't take it personal. It's your best interest. You may have one who is very laid back, would say everything is fine. If you have that kind of committee member, you really want to make sure that you're doing a good work, because if they're not going to critique what you're putting out there, remember, once your dissertation is done, it's not within your control anymore. It's in the public domain. So it's going to be just, everything is fine, and then you become lazy and you don't do a good work, you may live to regret that. Yes. So, wow, that is it for us. You've been listening to Demystified. Thanks for joining us. I am William Ankoma.
And I'm Julianne Burgess. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at PhDemystified@gmail.com. And we'll chat with you again in 2 weeks. Thanks and goodbye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Demystified. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to stay updated on new releases. We love to hear from our listeners, so please reach out to us at PhDemystified@gmail.com if you'd like to get in touch. This podcast is hosted and produced by Julianne Burgess, PhD, and William Ankoma, PhD, in collaboration with Brock University's Makerspace Studio. Co-produced and edited by Serena Atella. Music is High on Loungin' by Wax Lyricist. This podcast is financially supported by St. Francis Xavier University.